Good morning. Mothers, flowers, feminism, democracy, religion, and creativity. Quite a melding of ideas for a single Sunday morning. Yet, if we started to try and look at any of these ideas as separate entities, we would quickly find they're tightly woven. Pull a thread on one, and you pull a thread on all of these ideas. My earliest feminist experience was one of not being allowed to do something my brothers were allowed to do. I was probably 6. Oh, I heard over there. I was probably 6 when my family visited my aunt who was a nun. We were all dressed up, girls in dresses, boys in shorts. Somewhere along the line, the boys got permission to go climb some nearby trees. That same permission was denied to my sister and me because of our clothing. My feminism was ignited. How many women, LGBTQ plus people, people of color, and poor people have had their activism ignited by denial? How many mothers have had their activism ignited by denial aimed at their children? How much of the true embodiment of our American democratic values has been actualized because marginalized people have pushed for liberation and equity? Dr. Heather Cox Richardson of Boston College has a new book out called Democracy Awakening: Notes on the State of America. She attests that the book somewhat demanded a reworking of what she originally thought she was writing. She says this: "In the end, this book makes an argument for a new understanding of U.S. history as an explicitly democratic history, kept alive primarily by marginalized Americans who have worked to expand our rights and bring the principle of the Declaration of Independence to life." The early 20th century embodied a tension in the vision of women as weak and gentle, and in the need of beauty of such as flowers to nourish their more delicate beings, in contrast with the hard work of real women fighting for voting rights and workers' rights. The confluence of feminism and flowers is embodied in the 1911 poem Bread and Roses by James Oppenheim. The slogan, Bread and Roses, was inspired by American suffragist Helen Todd and became emblematic in a textile strike in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and then the world over for working women. The slogan, pairing both the basic bodily need of bread and the human need for beauty, embodied in roses, appealed for both fair wages and dignified working conditions that transcended the tedium of struggles for marginal economic advances that would advance not only women, but all the lives touched by women. As we go marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. The flower offering we continue today started in Czechoslovakia in the 1920s with the Unitarian minister Norbert Čopek. In an attempt to find a communal experience for a liberal congregation of members with disparate beliefs, Čopek devised the flower offering. Bring a flower, any flower. Put them together to make a beautiful unified bouquet, or multiple bouquets, and then send the individual flowers home with a person different from the one who brought it. Today, 100 years later, we conflate women and flowers again by holding this ceremony in honor of Mother's Day here. Hopefully, we honor Čopek's vision of seeing individuals come together to make a beautiful community and are reminded again that in community we are supported by one another as mothers of all kinds continue to work toward liberation and equity for all. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. May peace of the morning be with you all. I'm the Reverend Jeremiah Lal-Shabazz Kalendae, and I serve this historic congregation as its developmental minister. Welcome to this service on women's liberation and also our first celebration of flower communion since the beginning of the pandemic. We are also gathering in the time of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and we honor the lives, the dreams, and the contributions of members of these diverse communities to our common life. Today's sermon was adapted from a lecture I gave to the Beverly Hills Bar Association last month, a reflection on the liberal theology that helped to catalyze women's liberation in our movement. So if you're new to our community, it will hopefully provide a helpful overview of some important historical moments in our tradition and perhaps help us all to better appreciate our heretical heritage. I'm joined this morning by our worship associate, Sue Bickford, as well as our many talented musicians, our church choir, our music director, Sonder Choi, and so many wonderful faces greeting us at the front door, inviting us to our pews, and serving coffee and tea afterwards, and we are grateful for all of them. If this is your first time joining us, or if you're new to our congregation, you're invited to take some time after the service to stop by our visitor table and meet a few of our folks from our membership team to answer any questions you may have and learn more about our community. We light our flaming chalice this morning with a Mother's Day proclamation by Julia Ward Howe, remembering that one of the origins of the celebration of Mother's Day is in the feminist revolt against war. Arise, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, our husbands shall not come home to us reeking with carnage, for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity and mercy and patience. We, women of one community, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of counsel. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Then let them solemnly take counsel with each other as the means whereby the great human family can for once live in peace, and each bearing after her own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God.
Good morning, everyone. Our music for the morning is Bobby McFerrin's setting of Psalm 23, which he dedicated to his mother.
She rides my
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Sue Bickford, your worship associate for today. As we gather in this sanctuary and in our virtual spaces, we recognize that our homes and the homes of most of our members and friends are located near the sacred waters and upon the unceded lands of Indigenous peoples. This is the traditional home of the Tongva, Gabrieleño, Quechua, Ventureño, Fernandeño, and others. And we remember their ongoing presence among us, the painful histories of this land, and the continuing struggle for equity, justice, and sovereignty. We're delighted to have all of you with us, whether you are here in the sanctuary or in our online sanctuary from communities across the nation and beyond. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by one creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person. Our principles also encourage an individual truth, an individual search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe they are connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience, and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation, diverse in backgrounds, identities, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We are united in our desire to create an inclusive, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. We invite you to help us nurture this beloved community and further its transformative work in the world. We offer programs to serve the needs of our congregation and to be of service to the wider community, including broad religious exploration and personal development for people of all ages. We also join with other social justice activists to work for justice and harmony in our world. We are holding a wide variety of meetings, both online and in person, as we navigate the shifting realities of the post-COVID pandemic world. May you find comfort, community, and inspiration here. And now, a few things. Friday, May 26th at 6 p.m., UUCCSM has been invited to share in the Shabbat service at the Santa Monica Synagogue, which is also located on 18th Street, followed by a 7:15 dinner and discussion here. All are welcome, but please let us know you are coming by sending an email to rsvp@uusm.org. That's in the announcements. If you don't catch the email, you can go back to the Thursday blast and find it. This Saturday, May 20th, the first discussion group for our Common Read book, Miracles and Mistakes, will take place. It'll be online from 10:30 to 12:30. All are welcome, and please RSVP also to that. There's a link on the website for that. The membership committee is reviving our Faith Forward Inquiry series, and you're cordially invited to session 2, Sunday services, many parts coming together with Reverend Kakanza Nuri Robbins, to be held Thursday, May 18th, this Thursday, on Zoom at 7 to 8 p.m. And you can email faithforward@uusm.org for the Zoom link. I'll send that to you. And Dining for Dollars is happening. The bidding has begun. I went on the website last night. The bidding is not yet ferocious. I guess it's like those 2 weeks that we used to do in person. People wait till the second week to see what they have to do. But it's there. Go take a look. If you'd like information about this important, completely congregation-driven fundraising program, or if you need help to start bidding on the events, goods, and services offered, please find us in the courtyard, us being Carl, back there, in the courtyard after Sunday service, or go directly to Octria, the website. It's octria.events/UUSM if you got it. Bidding closes May 21st, so don't miss it, because you figure you'll do it the next time. And now I'm going to invite Sonder up to announce one of the more participatory events in the Dining for Dollars catalog.
Hi, everyone. I want to personally invite all of you to this year's Dining for Dollars offering by the choir. It's karaoke night, because we've all done it. We've picked up a toothbrush and sang in front of the mirror, or actually, because we live in LA, more likely we're driving in traffic down the 10 and we're belting on top of our lungs, right? Now you can sing on this stage for real, and this is a fundraising effort. So if you would like to perform, if you would like to sing your favorite karaoke song, we'll be selling tickets. We'll have a cover charge for that night. Everything can be purchased through Octria, because this is a fundraising effort for the church. And then there are some special bidding action. There's some special auction items that is related to this as well. You can actually request for the section leaders to sing your favorite song. So the bidding is on the website. Tokens will be available for singing. Singing tokens will be available that night, as well as drink tokens. And there will be an entry cover charge to attend the event. So come join us. This is an opportunity for you to contribute to the church and have fun throughout the night as well. So June 16, Friday, choir karaoke night. Thank you so much.
Start practicing with those toothbrushes. There is more information on our website in the Thursday blast, so don't miss any of it. I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit for the opening hymn, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, and stay standing for our covenant.
Our opening hymn today, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, is actually written by, is it Norbert? Norbert Chapek, who, as Sue mentioned earlier, is where the flower communion originated. And we're gonna try something here. If you identify as a soprano or alto, you will be singing verse 2 is only gonna be sung by sopranos and altos. Verse 1 is going to be everyone. Verse 2, if you identify as soprano or alto. Verse 3, if you identify as tenors or bass. And then verse 4 will reconvene with singing together once again. Okay.
to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal, haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts, take our breath, and let our voices sing our hearts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our heart.
Love is the doctrine of the church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, thus do we covenant with each other. El amor es la enseñanza que esta iglesia, buscar la verdad es su sacramento, y el servicio es la oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en la libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Así es como convivimos unos a otros. If you have a donation for the Westside Food Bank, we ask that you bring it forward and place it in our basket at this time, which is kind of over on the side because of all of our flowers today. We've been partners in collecting food for the Westside Food Bank for many years. If you'd like to donate food, please bring items that they use in large quantities like pasta and pasta sauce and juice and granola bars, protein bars, breakfast cereal, tuna, all in unbreakable stuff. Our service to the world can be embodied right here each Sunday. All people, young people and adults, are encouraged to give. We will now receive this morning's donation for the Westside Food Bank. And then we're going to start the time for all ages. So if anyone would like to join me on the steps, that's wonderful. It's for all ages, no matter whose child you are. Come on around this way, you guys, and we'll sit in the front. Is it on? Here we go. I'm thinking we look pretty good up here. Our colors are all kind of matching. What do you think? Yeah. All right. Yeah, kind of. It's all purples and pinks and stuff, and greens. I like it. So today I'm going to read a story called You Are Not Alone, I'm Here, based on a story called Tiny the God by a woman named Becky Brooks. So today we're enjoying our flower communion. Did you see all the flowers that we got? Everyone can bring a flower and take a different flower home. When we look at the flower we have at home, it reminds us that we're part of a community that likes to share with each other. And today's story is about another way to build community and share. There once was a tiny spiritual presence. In the Shinto spiritual practice, she would be called a kami. And this kami was so small that the other kami called her Tiny. Tiny was small, but she had big ideas. She wanted to be sure her existence had meaning. Tiny wanted to be helpful to humans, so she watched them for a while and thought about what she, as a tiny kami, could do for humans. Then she had a big idea. She noticed that humans often forget how many other humans there are in the world that they could be connected to. The humans forget, and they start to feel lonely. So Tiny started the You Are Not Alone project. Each night, Tiny turned herself into a gentle breeze, and in her breezy, very quiet voice, she whispered into people's ears, "You are not alone." People would hear this wonderful phrase inside their heads and would begin to feel better and say to themselves, "I am not alone." Now, most people were comforted by hearing a tiny voice in their ears say, "You are not alone." They felt a bit more connected to each other, but one night, Tiny whispered, "You are not alone," to a young woman named Miriam. Instead of feeling better, Miriam became upset. She kept repeating to herself, "You are not alone," but she didn't feel not alone. She felt alone. Miriam began to think about how she could feel not alone. How could she be connected to others? She tossed and turned all night long while her mind and her heart kept pondering being not alone. In the morning, a strange thing happened. It was an ordinary morning, but she walked to the bus. She began to see her neighbors and the people she always saw on her way to work, and suddenly, like a light bulb turning on in her brain and heart, she knew something she had never quite known before. I am connected to every single one of these people. I truly am not alone. Miriam thought, they have the same feelings I do. They're sad sometimes. They love their families like I love mine. They're scared sometimes like I am. Then a bigger thought came to Miriam. I can help others in my neighborhood feel not alone. Then she had an even bigger thought. I can help others in the country and the whole world feel not alone. Now, the small commie Tiny was keeping close track of Miriam. Tiny had never expected that whispering, "You are not alone," to people could make other big ideas grow. Tiny watched as Miriam began to help others. She had used lots of ways to tell others, "You are not alone." And when Miriam went grocery shopping, she would pick up a few extra things for the food bank or the neighbors. And when Miriam saw something that could be improved for everyone in her community, she called her town council or the county supervisors to talk to them about it. And Miriam even took the time to write to her national representatives to talk about things that can improve the whole country. She waved to dog walkers, donated what she could to good causes, wrote real letters to faraway friends, and greeted people with a smile. One evening, the breezy Tiny was flitting in and out of Miriam's window, watching her, when Miriam got a call from a friend. She hadn't heard from this friend in a long time, and it wasn't far into the conversation when Miriam realized this friend was having a hard time. As they were talking, the friend began to cry. Miriam recognized how sad her friend had felt and remembered feeling that sad sometimes herself. Tiny heard Miriam say to her friend, "It's okay, take your time, you are not alone." Now, Tiny recognized her own message, and then she heard Miriam add something to that message. Miriam said to her friend, "I am here." Tiny suddenly realized that "I am here" is exactly what was needed to complete her message of, "You are not alone." Tiny's spiritual being began to grow. The tiny night breeze that said, "You are not alone," became a bigger breeze that spent all her existence spreading the message, "You are not alone, I am here." "I am here" was the bridge between people that connected them and made them feel not alone. Here at UUCCSM, our flowers today say, "You are not alone. I am here too." So I have a question for you, but you don't have to answer the question right now, but it is a question to think about. What other ways can we find to tell each other, "You are not alone. I am here"? And that's our story. We're going to sing out.
Let's sing our song of blessing, and we invite our youth to go to their RE classes on the second time we sing it.
Let us breathe into a few moments of mindful centering and stillness. Awareness expands and contracts like our breathing as we consider the wide world and the communities to which we belong, and then bring our mindfulness closer to our own lives and our own concerns, our own dreams. Let us feel this embrace as we breathe into a space of serene calm and then breathe out into the world that same calm. Drawing air in from the communities and many beings that provide it, and then returning our breath as the simplest of offerings in the cycle of life, which we are each a part. May our mindfulness expand to the place of both and as we hold space for beloved community and for ourselves. We have a few joys and sorrows to welcome into our hearts this morning. Church member Judith Martin Straw is delighted to share that her younger daughter, Sophia, has won a $500 scholarship from the Angel City Chorale and will be performing at UCLA in June. Tickets for the performance will be available at the website for Angel City Chorale. Congratulations to Sophia and her proud family and friends. We hold you all in the light of beloved community. Our church president, Eileen McCormick, is recovering from surgery that she just had on Friday, and I promised that we would lift her up in our caring thoughts and prayers this morning. May she find healing and wholeness as we hold her in our light of beloved community. And finally, Hildreth remains hospitalized and in a stable but difficult condition, and we continue to wish her healing and well-being, and we hold her in the light of our beloved community. Our mindfulness prayer for further reflection is The Wide Spectrum of Mothering by Amy Young. To those who gave birth this year to their first child, we celebrate with you. To those who lost a child this year, we mourn with you. To those who are in the trenches with little ones every day and wear the badge of a food stain, we appreciate you. To those who experience loss through miscarriage, failed adoptions, or running away, we mourn with you. To those who walk the hard path of infertility, fraught with pokes, prods, tears, and disappointment, we walk with you. Forgive us when we say foolish things. We don't mean to make this harder than it is. To those who are foster moms, mentor moms, and spiritual moms, we need you. To those who have warm and close relationships with your children, we celebrate with you. To those who have disappointment, heartache, and distance with your children, we sit with you. To those who lost their mothers this year, we grieve with you. To those who experienced abuse at the hands of your own mother, we acknowledge your experience. To those who lived through driving tests, medical tests, and the overall testing of motherhood, we are better for having you in our midst. For those who have aborted children, we remember you and them on this day. For those who are single and long to be married and mothering your own children, we mourn that life has not turned out the way that you longed for it to be. To those who step-parent, we walk with you on these complex paths. To those who envisioned lavishing love on grandchildren, yet that dream is not to be, we grieve with you. To those who will have emptier nests in the upcoming year, we grieve and rejoice with you. To those who have placed children up for adoption, we commend you for your selflessness and remember how you hold that child in your heart. To those who are pregnant with new life, both expected and surprising, we anticipate with you. This Mother's Day, we walk with you. Mothering is not for the faint of heart, and we have so many real warriors in our midst. We remember you. Let us meditate together in mindful awareness, in silence for a few brief minutes together. Forgot it can do that. We are a radical religious tradition born of heresy. Our ancestors dared to question the prevailing religious doctrines, dogmas, theologies, and cultural mores of their times. With open hearts and inquiring minds, they questioned what everyone seemed to accept as true, from the nature of God to various religious dogmas, to the gender roles prescribed by society. As heretics, they didn't have to worry about fitting into the dominant religious landscape, so they were able to inquire and deconstruct, philosophize, and theologize in a spirit of freedom that is uncommon to most religious histories. This freedom, the humanistic liberty of the liberal religious tradition, counseled us to heed the guidance of reason and the insights of science, and it warned us not to accept any idolatries of the mind or of the spirit just because they had been accepted by others. It taught us to accept nothing on faith alone, but to cultivate a discerning faith guided by the principles, values, and wisdom that was passed down through the ages. This approach to religious life helped to liberate our theological imagination. That is how we explore, create, conceptualize, and transform our understandings of God or of what is divine or what is of ultimate value in our tradition. As our tradition liberated this theological imagination, it increasingly liberated those who had been oppressed by the old ways of conceptualizing religion and ultimate truth. Women, Black, Indigenous, people of color, disabled people, queer and trans people, and many others. This morning we will explore specifically women's liberation and its relationship to this freeing of the theological imagination. The Unitarian Universalist movement has roots deep in American soil. The Universalist Church of America began sometime around 1774 when congregations began to organize themselves around this radical theological doctrine of universal salvation. Declared heretical by their Christian contemporaries, our tradition believed that a God who was love would not condemn anyone to everlasting torment because that doesn't make sense. The Unitarian Church was organized in 1825 when our congregational churches began proclaiming the unity of the divine spirit and rejecting the Trinity as a fabrication of various church councils. Likewise considered heretical by their Christian contemporaries, our Unitarian ancestors emphasized reason in the interpretation of biblical texts and in the practice of religion. The use of reasoned biblical criticism resulted in the church discerning, in addition to this biblical basis for the unity of God, the understanding that Jesus, peace be upon him, was a great prophet and religious teacher, but was not also God. The tradition asserted that original sin was another fabrication of the earlier church that was harmful to people and progress in society. Over time, these two traditions grew remarkably similar as they adopted humanistic principles, embraced scientific inquiry, and accepted religious plurality. In 1961, our two traditions merged to form our contemporary Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, which is headquartered as far from Santa Monica as one can get in the United States, in Boston, and is comprised of over 1,000 independent and interdependent congregations spread across the United States. Now, our religious tradition has been at the forefront of the fight for women's rights and the movements for feminine empowerment for over 2 centuries. In 1863, the first woman ordained and invested with denominational authority in the United States was the Reverend Olympia Brown, and she was a member of our Universalist Church. Women in the tradition were active leaders in the religiously grounded movements for the abolition of slavery and women's suffrage. Elizabeth Cady Stanton helped to organize the Seneca Falls Convention, the first women's rights convention. Frances Ellen Watkins, Julia Ward Howe, Susan B. Anthony, and many others worked in intersectional ways to combat slavery, promote women's rights, and the general welfare. A tradition of powerful feminine leadership emerged with examples of figures such as Florence Nightingale, who established the modern nursing profession, Dorothea Dix, who reformed mental health care, and Clara Barton, who founded the American Red Cross. Women's empowerment within our congregations fueled countless advances in science, mathematics, literature, education, and many other fields. The first woman to lead a school of theological education, one of my own mentors, in any religious tradition, was appointed way back in 1995. Today, this long legacy of combating patriarchy and advancing women's rights has resulted in a religious movement that is composed mostly of female clergy. The liberal tradition's commitment to love, reason, freedom, democracy, and progress helped it to support women's liberation within the context of religious community for over 2 centuries. In 1963, and I think these are important facts to us to remember in the time that we are living, a decade before the Roe v. Wade decision of 1973, our UUA General Assembly, which is a national gathering of our elected representatives from all of our congregations, voted to call for a reform to the abortion statutes that would make abortion legal in most instances. 5 years later, in 1968, the General Assembly voted for legalization of abortion in all instances. These democratic decisions of the people of our church were followed by votes in 1970 calling for equal rights and opportunities for women in all areas of life, and an urgent summons for more child care centers in 1971. Resolutions calling for the further advancement of women's rights have been passed by overwhelming majorities every few years for the last 50 years. Our liberal religious tradition possesses one of the oldest and most robust legacies of advocating for women's rights and the empowerment of women in our society. I would contend that the progress made to date is partially the result of nurturing a liberated theological imagination. Theology is the basis for one's worldview. It's the framework through which people and cultures have made meaning of their existences both consciously and unconsciously. How we think about God or ultimate truth or what is of greatest worth to us has profoundly shaped how we think about ourselves and other people and this reality that we inhabit. This is true for the religious and non-religious person alike because we are all embedded in larger cultural realities, which are the result of centuries of certain people doing theology and creating frameworks of meaning that typically privilege some while they exclude others. We inhabit a cis-hetero-patriarchal culture because its dominant theological worldviews were framed by cisgender heterosexual men to the exclusion of women, transgender, and queer people. We likewise inhabit a white supremacist culture because the dominant theological worldviews were framed by white people and mostly white men to the exclusion of black people, indigenous people, and people of color. We likewise inhabit an ableist culture because the dominant theological worldviews were framed by healthy and able-bodied people to the exclusion of people with visible and invisible disabilities. These cultural realities are not independent of each other, and they're not accidental. Intersectionality invites us to consider how these systems are related to one another, interact with one another, and reinforce each other. Liberatory frameworks are also being articulated that deconstruct these harmful realities in intersectional ways. The self-described black lesbian mother warrior poet Audre Lorde would remind us there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. So I think to speak of women's liberation, we also have to speak of anti-racism, of transgender rights, of the rights of the disabled and the neurodivergent, of the welfare of immigrants and refugees, of the problems of unfettered capitalism and its crushing economic oppression of the poor, and of many other complex and overlapping realities in which we all live. This kind of intersectional thinking is where our liberal tradition has arrived in the present day, as it discerns how best to realize the diverse, multicultural, beloved community envisioned by the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., both in our sanctuaries and in the larger world. It's critical that we understand the historical liberatory insights that helped our ancestors to pierce these dominant theological frameworks of meaning over the past 2 centuries to advance the rights of women and others to get us where we all are today. Although many religious traditions embrace some of these theological propositions, ours made them fundamental points of emphasis historically. The first I will briefly explore is the declaration that revelation is not sealed. It isn't something that happened at one time and one place or through one person, but it's an ongoing, unfolding process. Conservative religious theology looks to an immutable past upon which we can pattern the future. It believes that that revelation is sealed and complete, and one need only to preserve what has been rather than articulate what might be. At the heart of the liberal religious theological framework was this verse from the Christian scriptures. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is divine will, the good, the pleasing, and the perfect. Human beings aren't just to accept what is normative at any given point in history, but they're called to receive new revelation to transform themselves through this renewal of their minds. It's for this reason that the tradition adopted an openness towards science and emphasized the importance of integrating new information, sometimes at the expense of old ways of knowing and doing things. We didn't limit our sources of revelation to scripture or even religion, but we found them everywhere. So a fundamental openness to new knowledge, feeling, and experience was a theological framework that propelled many of the societal advances that I've referenced. Another liberatory insight emphasized in our religious tradition concerns the nature of the divine and humanity. In the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Genesis, we find the verses, Elohim, it's one of the divine names in Hebrew, said to us, "Let us make humankind in our image, in our likeness." So Elohim created humankind in the divine image. In the image of the divine, they were created. Male and female, Elohim created them. Elohim saw that all had been made and declared that it was very good. In these verses, we find the theological basis for gender liberation on multiple fronts. They leave us with an image of the divine and of human beings that is both masculine and feminine. People of all genders had to learn to see themselves reflected in this divine image, or what is of ultimate value, to completely value themselves and their own genders. These verses were muted by the dominant Christian tradition, which emphasized the maleness and fatherhood of God to the exclusion of femininity and motherhood and the transgender or genderqueer nature of the divine that we find clearly articulated in the Hebrew text. The Bible says the divine is male and female, not one or the other. The Hebrew scriptures reveal images of the divine that are gender inclusive and expansive and that do not neatly fit into the simple gender binary that's been promoted by these very traditions for a millennia. Secondly, these verses emphasize that humanity is declared to be very good. We embrace this fundamental goodness of people, and we rejected the doctrine of original sin as a false religious dogma that was responsible for centuries of maligning women. The Unitarian and Universalist churches removed the weight of fundamental human corruption that mainline traditions emphasized, and still do, and instead were moved to nurture virtue and human goodness as the path to religious enlightenment. In our theological frameworks, Eve was no longer held as responsible for evil in the world, and women were no longer cast in the image of the fallen couple, for they too were made in the divine image and declared to be very good. A final liberatory insight emphasized in the liberal religious tradition is the preferential option articulated in religious scriptures for the poor and for those who are unable to exercise power because of various structures and sources of oppression. In the Christian text, this is largely summarized in the famous teaching of the sheep and the goats in the Gospel of Matthew. In this narrative, the ethical decisions made in one's lifetime are judged based upon the extent to which they served or neglected individuals who were subjected to various states of oppression. The divine presence asserts in this text, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these siblings of mine, you did for me." And conversely, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." It's therefore incumbent upon those who follow this liberal spiritual path to once again not conform to those patterns of the world, and by extension, those who are given power, privilege, and esteem by the world, but rather to seek out and serve those who are invisibilized, erased, oppressed, held captive in this world. In the liberal religious tradition, this historical theological analysis is a fundamental basis for humanitarian endeavors and intersectional social justice activism. Now, it's through our theological openness, our critical readings of religious texts, our theological emphasis on human goodness, and our principal concern for those who are oppressed that the liberatory potential of liberal religion was realized in advancing the rights of women and others who were forced to live in cultural norms, societal structures, and frameworks of meaning that they had little to no part in creating and that did not serve their interests. As we now work for the creation of the beloved community, both within our church walls and in our larger society, let us be grateful for our forebears and carry the light of their witness into the future. May it help us to lead with open hearts and the critical and questioning free faith that was exemplified by our Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalist ancestors. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Okay, now we get to the fun stuff. Our flower communion. So the Unitarian Universalist Flower Communion service, which we're about to celebrate, originated in 1923, so 100 years ago, by the Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek, founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. It was celebrated annually before the summer recess of the Unitarian Church in Prague, and all of the community participated in this colorful ritual, which gives concrete expression to the humanity-affirming principles of our liberal faith. When the Nazis took control of Prague in 1940, they found Dr. Čapek's gospel of the inherent worth and beauty of every human person to be, as the Nazi court records show, too dangerous for the Reich for him to be allowed to live. Dr. Čapek was sentenced to Dachau, where he was killed the next year during a Nazi medical experiment. This gentleman suffered a cruel death, but his message of hope and decency lives on through the flower communion, which is widely celebrated in Unitarian churches across the world today. So I would say that this flower communion is perhaps not the delicacy of femininity, but the power of femininity to resist fascism and Nazis, which our world needs all the more today. It's a noble and meaning-filled ritual which we are about to create. We began this special service singing Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, a haunting hymn with words of Dr. Chapek, and we'll celebrate this service in its traditional form this year, which includes the original prayers of Dr. Chapek to help us remember the principles and dreams for which he died. So let us consecrate our flowers. I ask you to raise your hands in consecration of these flowers. These are Dr. Chapek's words. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessings on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amidst diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to holy will. May they also remind us of the value of camaraderie, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of the most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationships, but may we realize that wherever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. May it be so. It's now time for us to share in our flower communion. I ask that you form a line, perhaps in this aisle and this aisle, and to approach these communion vases quietly and reverentially with a sense of how important it is for each of us to address the world and one another with gentleness, justice, and love. I ask that you select a flower different from the one that you brought, and don't worry if you didn't bring one, we have plenty of flowers for everybody. But pick one that particularly appeals to you. And as you take your chosen flower, noting its particular shape and beauty, please remember to handle it carefully. It is a gift that someone else has brought to you. It represents that person's unique humanity and therefore deserves your kindest touch. Let us share quietly in this Unitarian Universalist ritual of oneness and of love. You're invited to come forward. Now let us receive Dr. Chopik's flower communion prayer. In the name of providence, which implants in the seeds the future of the tree, and in the hearts of people the longing of people to live in love. In the name of the highest, in whom we move and who makes the parent and the sibling what they are, in the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrifice their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice, let us renew our resolution sincerely to be real siblings to each other, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges one from the other. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. And just before he was put to death in Dachau, Dr. Chopik wrote this prayer, reflecting on his own life and the state of his spirit. It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow ye evil winds into my body's fire, my soul you'll never unravel. Even though disappointment 1,000 times or fallen in the fight and everything would seem worthless, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul, my life was worth living. One who was pressed from all sides but remained victorious in spirit is welcomed into the choir of heroes. One who overcame the fetters, giving wing to the mind, is entered into the golden age of the victorious. May we too remember Dr. Chopik's example and to commit, to cherish, and to protect the beauty of life. Amen.
During the flower communion, I got one correction on the announcements. The Faith Forward series, this next session will be led by Cassie Winters, as opposed to Kakanza. It's Mother's Day. Motherhood done well is a lot about giving generously to build a connected family without giving yourself away completely. It's often a creative endeavor. Giving to this congregation is something like that. To keep the connection strong, we need to give of ourselves. Here's another chance to say to each other, you are not alone, I am here. Giving monetarily is a way to be generous in supporting the space where connections can flourish. Today, 50% of our offering goes to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is well known for helping women make the right choices for themselves about the timing of becoming a mother, but it's so much more than a place to have an elected abortion. Planned Parenthood's mission is to ensure all people have access to the care and resources they need to make informed decisions about their bodies, their lives, and their futures. Founded in 1916, Planned Parenthood is a trusted health care provider, educator, and passionate advocate here in the U.S., as well as a strong partner to health and rights organizations around the world. Each year, Planned Parenthood delivers vital sexual and reproductive health care, sex education, and information to millions of people. Planned Parenthood health centers provide a wide range of services: preventive care, including birth control, testing, and treatment for sexually transmitted infections, and screenings for cervical and other cancers. Planned Parenthood is proud to serve the diverse needs of local communities through a national network of more than 600 health centers operated by their affiliates. Planned Parenthood also works with more than 100 local organizations in Africa and Latin America to increase access to health care and education. There are many ways to give, as you know, and as our slide constantly tells us, as we have there. So whether you're texting on your smartphone or writing a check or going to the website, we thank you for all that you do to help support work in the world that's bigger than our community. There you go.
presented by the sopranos and altos of the UUSM choir.
What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? What happens when she rules her body? What happens when she sets the beat? What happens when she bows to nobody? What happens when she stands on her own 2 feet? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? Oh, we rise above. Oh, we lead with love. Oh, we have won. We are one. We've just begun. Oh, we rise above. Oh, we lead with love. Oh, we have won. We are one. We've just begun. We've just begun. What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? 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 What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens when she wears the crown?
Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. This is 1051 ER.
Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are
May you go in peace. May you hold fast to that which is good, returning to no person evil for evil, but strengthening the faint of heart, supporting the weak, helping the afflicted, honoring all beings. May you go forth into this day and be blessed, and may you be a blessing. Happy Mother's Day. Amen.